Order the village board meeting for October 1st, 2012. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Ron is absent tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Nero.
Here.
Trustee Emery.
Here.
Klebanow.
Present.
Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Seneca.
Here.
Manager Searle.
Here.
Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Finance Director Parker.
Here.
Police Chief Mulhern.
Here.
Fire Chief Wise.
Here.
Acting Community Development Director Malik.
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, the IT guy is here too, IT manager.
He is now the IT guy.
Everybody join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, reports. The mayor has not left me anything. The only thing I would like to say is I had along with Sue, I had a great time. I didn't see anybody else there, but you came later. I apologize at the
Ginny was
Oktoberfest. And Ginny was there, that's right, towards the end. It was a great time, good music, good food, and it was a lot of fun. So hopefully they do it next year and we can get more people out there next year. But other than that, that's all I have. I'll pass it on to our clerk.
Okay, I just have a couple of announcements. Fire Prevention Week starts October 8th, I presume, Monday. But the open house is Tuesday, October 9th at the headquarters station, 6015 South Cass, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. There are all kinds of giveaways and fun times for the kids. So everybody come out. And then the silent parade is Friday, October 12th. And it will hit Westmont. It starts in Hinsdale, but it'll come right along Chicago/Naperville Road, and it'll hit Westmont right around 7. So if you're up on Naperville Road anywhere with your flashlights, you'll see the silent parade go by, and it's very emotional, very nice. So those two announcements I wanted to make sure and made. And then, again, I'm going to remind everybody that the packets are ready in the clerk's office for the mayor, clerk, 3 trustee positions, and 4 library trustee positions. So we have plenty of packets all ready to go. I want to do congratulations to Carrie Kamak. Carrie came through Institute and was at the top the whole time. It was wonderful to have all of these instructors come up to me and say, do you know how lucky you are to have that guy? And I said, yes, and I'm never going to let him go. He's marvelous, and he does a wonderful job, and they all really appreciated him, which made me feel
And he's now finished his certification process, right?
right. We'll be working on all those papers for him. So, and I think that's, homecoming. Isn't the homecoming
Thursday.
parade Thursday night?
The parade.
The parade is Thursday night and the game on Friday. And does the parade start at like 6:30?
I think it's 6:15.
6:30?
Is it 6:30?
I thought so. So 6:30, Thursday night, come out and watch the homecoming parade, and then the game is on Friday night.
Lyle.
Is it Lyle? It's always a grudge match. Okay, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sure.
All right. Our village attorney.
Welcome back to Trustee Klebanow.
Thank you.
Long time no see. There was an email that came in about political signs,
Saw
and no longer can municipalities force the removal of political signs on private property within so many days following an election. They may be permitted year-round. This was discussed at a staff level once the law was passed in 2010, applicable in 2011. I believe that's a zoning ordinance regulation that we have, something that we just need to get processed to make sure we're complying with state law, but staff has not been enforcing the regulations that are currently on the books. And we will look into, we've been waiting to make a series of zoning ordinance amendments, and that's on the list.
Good.
So the prohibition is removal, after the fact with the bond. That's it. Where we initially had a bond put up and it required removal within 2 weeks or whatever it was.
Right.
We didn't have a time. Did we have a
There's
time
no
for that?
bond anymore.
We had a time limit, yeah.
We did.
Time
We
limit.
did, yeah.
Now, you can't place political signs or any signs for that matter on public property, right-of-ways, et cetera, and those will be removed. That's all I have.
All right, and our village manager?
Yes. I was going to once again give the presentation, the home rule presentation. This time I'm going to do it from out here. So, we've got it up on air. Try to go through this and then answer any questions that board members may have had since maybe the last time we talked, or if you want to open it up for any questions from the public. I know we don't have a lot of folks here tonight, but I'll be happy to try to answer those questions as well. So we have the question coming up. Well, let me first off start, because I know this was a comment made at the last presentation. I want to make it clear that the reason that at some of these public presentations that we've got scheduled, the board members are not in attendance, specifically because of the rules regarding advocacy of this question, one way or the other. We cannot advocate one way or the other, and staff included. There are some fairly serious penalties if the board or staff were to do that, including charges of Class B misdemeanors, and if there's a repeat offense, it can be a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by fine up to $2,500 or 1 year in jail. So that is the reason, and wanted to let the public know that board members are not going to be in attendance at the public presentations, similar to the one we had last Monday for the Westmont Special Events Corporation that they invited and hosted for us. So November 6th, we have a ballot question here on the general election ballot that we are required to do so when our population fell below 25,000 as a result of the 2010 decennial census. And the question simply states, shall the village of Westmont cease to be a home rule unit of government, yes or no? What is home rule? Kind of go back real quickly in history. There was a judge that ruled in the 1800s by the name of Dillon. Sorry. I'll stand over here closer. There was a judge back in the 1800s who ruled on a case in Iowa on which he stated that municipalities only have those powers that are given by the states. They're creatures of the state. And that became a national adopted sort of standard and has become known as Dillon's Rule. And it applied here in Illinois until the new state constitution in 1970, in which they created essentially two classifications of municipalities, one being the home rule classification, the other being non-home rule. The threshold population threshold that was created under the constitutional change was 25,000. So any community, 25,000 or more, automatically becomes home rule. There's also a provision that allows the voters to vote that in if you're less than 25,000, as well as the ability for them to vote it out. Presently, there's about 167 home rule units of government in Illinois. So non-home rule communities continue to have only the powers that are expressly granted in state law. And if they want to do something that's not there in the state law, they have to seek legislation, or in some cases, I suppose they could do referendum to enact certain things. Home rule communities are powers limited only by the laws that are expressly prohibited home rule communities, and those allow certain powers and authority. The advantages to being a home rule community is, and this is more from the standpoint of residents having communication with their local officials. You have greater access and a greater accountability. As everyone here knows, people can come in during open forum and talk to the board members if they're not happy about something. And that is something that is harder to do when it involves a state law. You have to go to Springfield or contact your local legislator. And even if you do that, you're only talking to one, maybe two people, whereas here you've got the entire legislative body to talk to and make known your opinion on things. Another advantage is the community is less dependent on the state. So again, unless the state prohibits home rule communities from doing certain things, if the community has an identified problem, we can deal with it here locally, and the board can try to adopt programs to address those. We're less subject to state mandates. We've talked about before the issue of unfunded state mandates, and I know there's been some questions about what that means. What we're talking about are laws that are passed by the state that require us to do something that causes an expenditure to us, and they don't provide us any sort of additional revenue source in order to pay for that. We have the ability to use broader taxing authority so that we can try to capture revenue from non-residents. For example, we implemented a 2.5 cent gasoline tax, which doesn't apply just to non-residents. It includes everybody who buys gas here in Westmont, but it does allow us to draw revenue from outside the village for those folks who come in and buy from our businesses. We also have the 0.5% home rule sales tax, which again, applies to residents as well, but it also applies to people who come here and shop in Westmont. Another advantage, which was a significant advantage to us, is the ability to use hotel motel tax funds in our general fund. As a non-home rule community, you're restricted by legislation to only spend it on those things that promote tourism and overnight stay in the village. As I sort of alluded to earlier, you have more flexible powers for local problems. So again, if you have an issue that you're trying to address and the statute doesn't specifically provide a mechanism for you to do that, unless you're prohibited from doing something, you can implement a program or service to try to address that. Also have the ability to borrow money at a lower interest rate, which is not something our board has historically, and past boards for that matter, has been real excited about doing. And I don't see that changing in the future, but that is an advantage of being a home rule community. Broader impact fee power. If you have a development that comes in, and of course in these economic times it's not as applicable, but if you have a significant development comes in that's going to have a significant impact on your services, you can increase the impact fees to try to offset the costs of those additional services to the resident, therefore not having to pay for it with other types of revenue sources. Neighborhood preservation flexibility. The example I like to use with this particular item is our multifamily licensing program. This was really the impetus for the mayor and the board a number of years ago wanting to achieve home rule status. We have a very significant number of multifamily and rental units here in Westmont, more so than most of the neighboring communities and most of the communities in DuPage County. We have a number of aging apartment complexes, some that date back to the 60s and the 70s. And we felt it was important to be able to develop a regular inspection program to be able to try to address some of the code issues in those buildings and try to improve and maintain the quality of life for the residents in those particular parts of our community. Protects the village from county home rule powers. Now, DuPage County is not a home rule community, but if they were to become one, us being home rule would preempt that and protect us from anything that they might do as a home rule county. Arguments against. There's two primary ones. One is no property tax caps. Our board has tried to be very sensitive to that. Adopted a policy several years ago when we became home rule in 2007, where we would allow that portion of our property tax levy to float to meet our commitment for our police pension fund and try to maintain the balance of the levy so that it was in compliance with the tax cap law. Sometimes that's a little hard to guess because you levy a specific dollar amount. You try to anticipate what the rate is going to be based on that. And particularly with changes in the assessed valuation lately, and then that evaluation going down, it's made it a challenge to try to guess what that is, but that's been our practice and our policy the last few years. We made a commitment to, or the board made a commitment to the police pension fund a number of years ago to try to catch up with monies that we owe to try to fully fund that pension fund. If anyone is paying attention to state news in particular, there are a number of pension funds across the state that are struggling to be fully funded, and we are required by 2040, I think, to be 90% funded, if I remember right. So we have a plan in place and an agreement with our police pension fund to try to meet that. Potential broad power abuse is probably the biggest complaint or biggest disadvantage that you hear from opponents regarding home rule. It's sort of hard to list what that is here because sometimes that can be a very subjective thing in terms of a resident or a group of residents thinking, well, you implemented something, we feel that that's an abuse of your power. Our board has been very cautious and cognizant of that, and we haven't done significant changes with programs and services other than our multifamily licensing program as a home rule community. One of the unfounded arguments that I've actually heard at a couple of meetings I've been at is that it authorizes a home rule community to ignore the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. That's not true. So I just want to make sure people understand that we are still subject to those laws. So what does the loss mean to the village? We currently estimate, based on the 2.5-cent gasoline tax and the 0.5% home rule sales tax, that we'll potentially lose between $2.1, $2.4 million. And the way we're going to have to address this is further budget cuts, programs, possible service reductions. As the board knows, we've gone through a very regimented series of cuts over the last number of years, starting really in 2004. And we've cut what we think is a lot of fat, or I wouldn't call it fat, but things that are at this point down to a point where we've got nothing left but really some core services and personnel. And it's going to be difficult to make those further cuts without some significant impact to the residents. We can look at alternative revenue increases. There aren't as many available as a non-home rule community, but we will probably be forced to look at that if we end up losing home rule status. To give you some perspective on what the $2 million could mean to the budget, if we're just looking at simple percentages of certain portions of our general operating fund, which is our main operating fund, if we were just to apply it, for example, to the police department, that would cause a reduction in their budget of about 26%. If you were simply looking at number of police officers potentially, and again, this is just to give an illustration, that would represent about 20 police officer positions if the cuts were only applied there. If we were applied to the fire department, that's almost half of their budget. It's a little harder to give you specific numbers on the number of positions that be cut because we have a part-time department's paid on call, and because of that, it's hard to predict how much people earn over a given year. If we were to apply that across the entire village, that's about a 13% reduction in our operating fund, and that would be about 22 positions. We have about 99 full-time positions right now, so that's about 22% of our current workforce. Again, I'm not suggesting these are the things that the village will end up doing, but I'm just trying to give some perspective on what the dollar values mean to our current budget situation. Abuse safeguards, obviously the main one is elections. As I said earlier, there's greater accountability because residents can come here and talk to their elected officials. Obviously, there are elections every 4 years, and if people are not happy with the policies and the programs and services that are being implemented, they can make that known at the ballot box. There is the ability to do voter rescission. That's been attempted and done in some communities. Most recently, Downers Grove had a question on the ballot back in 2006, I want to say. There have been 31 rescission elections, and home rule has been rejected in 4 of those cases over the years. There has not been a community that's rescinded in the last 20 years. The last one, I believe, is the city of Rockford. In order for a resident to put the question on the ballot, it requires a minimum of 10% of the voters from the last mayoral election on petitions. Needless to say, that is an option that's available for voters if they feel like things are being abused. The state also has legislative preemptive power. A simple majority of both legislative houses is needed to provide exclusive state exercise of a particular power. A 3/4 majority of both legislative houses is needed to deny home rule communities the right to use a particular power. So again, it gets back to a situation where you'd be contacting your state representative, but it is a process that is available to elected or to the electors. There's also judicial review and oversight. There's the constitutional protections, as we talked about earlier, and certain home rule units are prohibited from levying certain income and occupation and earnings taxes, and that is authorized, by the General Assembly. Home rules units are already denied by certain legislation's specific powers. For example, levying bonds maturing in more than 40 years, or to define certain acts as felonies. Those are 2 examples that the General Assembly has already put in place. The General Assembly can impose certain obligations on all local governments, including home rule powers. Examples of that include Freedom of Information Act, the Open Meetings Act, collective bargaining legislation. So it's not unknown for the legislature to say, this is something we think should apply across all or both classifications of communities. This chart is just kind of more of a perspective chart. Shows you, and I know it's a little hard to read on these screens, but it shows you how the community has grown over the last number of decades. And I can't use the laser on here, otherwise it will shut everything off, I'm told. But if you look very closely at the years underneath the certain bar graphs that are in parentheses, those are years that we have done special censuses. Those include 53, 67, 73, 77, 86, 98, and most recently 2007, after which we became a home rule community. Wanted to mention that, and I know the board members know this because we've talked about this before, but in 2003, after the 2000 decennial census, we were prepared as soon as the U.S. Census Bureau was ready to take applications for a special census. We were prepared at that time to go ahead and file and do that count for the village. However, the mayor and the board at the time felt, because we were so close to home rule, that we should take more time to provide some more education to the public. We had some public forums and discussions on it to try to help people educate, what it means, and in particular, our board's perspective on why we wanted it, primarily with the multifamily licensing program at the time. Staff has estimated, as a result of waiting those 4 years, we lost probably about $500,000 of tax revenue per capita. So my point is, the board didn't act rashly in terms of doing the special census to become a home rule community, I think they had a very strong concern about how people in the community would react to it. The other thing I wanted to mention about our effort in 2007, we had a citizens ad hoc committee that also made that recommendation. That was one of the early recommendations that they made, was to do the special census, try to capture the missing revenue, and achieve home rule status in that process. The last slide is just a list of some, it's a bibliography of some studies that have been done on home rule, particularly on how home rule is affected, how communities apply property tax. That's a common concern that's expressed, that if you become home rule, you're not exempt from, or you are exempt from the property tax cap. And there's been a number of studies that demonstrate that actually other types of revenue sources have been used to help offset that over the years. These links are available on our website, so you're only seeing a portion of the references here, but you can find that on our website under our home rule section. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Ron, I was going to say one of the myths is that home rule communities tax more than non-home rule communities. And in the articles that show up in the bibliography, they've studied that issue amongst all the home rule communities over the years. And I know that the most recent article was published several years ago, but at that time, that was a myth, that the overall taxation is relatively equal between home rule and non-home rule communities.
Right, right.
And then one clarification, you correctly stated that non-home rule communities only have those powers that are expressly granted by the state. They also have those powers that are necessarily implied by those express grants of power. Mm-hmm. So zoning is a good example. The state provides certain powers to non-home rule and home rule municipalities to zone, but may not specify what setback should be or what bulk requirements should be. A community has the implied powers from that express grant of power to set their own bulk regulations.
And I suppose there's case law that helps give some guidance on some of those things too. Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. Mm-hmm. There are certain factions that claim that if we lose home rule, that ordinances which were enacted while we had home rule, such as the multifamily licensing, will automatically be repealed. My understanding is that's not true. Is that the case?
We don't know the answer to that,
yeah.
Because the courts have not specifically addressed it. They've addressed it in one case, which is a case out of the city of Rockford, and the court in that case held that as to an ordinance and a contract that was passed, the loss of home rule power did not jeopardize that particular ordinance and that particular contract. And the court goes on to say, we also think it's impossible for a home rule community that loses those powers to plan. If they lose home rule or home rule powers, to suddenly have their home rule ordinances go by the wayside. That makes for impossible planning. So that's strong evidence that another court would look at that and say, you're right, you can't take all these ordinances that are on the books and throw them away, such as the multifamily licensing. And I think that's the position that the village will take if it were to lose home rule power. What the village could not do is enact new ordinances, legislation under home rule if they don't have it.
Right.
And thank you for asking that, because that is a question that has come up in other presentations, and that's the answer that we've given to people. Yeah.
Good.
We've also explored the legislative history of the Home Rule Act a little bit and talked to the Illinois Municipal League on that issue, and they're not exactly sure what would happen to existing ordinances.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mm-mm.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is that it for your report?
That is it.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving right on, I don't believe we have any items to be removed from the consent agenda. So I will skip to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of the village board minutes, the finance ordinance as presented, and the purchase orders as previously listed. Emery?
Second, Seneca.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Sinek?
Yes.
All right, unfinished business. 7, preliminary TIF eligibility study discussion. Board to consider a motion accepting the preliminary findings of Tesca Associates related to the feasibility of creating a tax increment financing district in the area near the B1 Limited Business District.
Motion to approve, Emery?
Second, Scott.
Discussion, roll call.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
All right. B, automated traffic law enforcement system. Board to consider a motion authorizing the continued use of the automated traffic law enforcement system, which is the red light photo enforcement, with a subsequent review of said system in 12 months.
Motion to approve, Emery?
Second, Scott.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes. All right, moving right along. 8, new business. A, preliminary final plat request, 1006 Bendenford Lane. Board to consider an ordinance approving a preliminary final plat of subdivision request from the Village of Westmont to subdivide a detention basin out of Falcon Villas, Lot 23 at 1006 Bendenford Lane.
Motion to approve, Emery?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes. Okay. B, waiver request 55 West 57th Street. Board to consider an ordinance waiving a public sidewalk requirement.
So move, Seneca.
Second, Emery, with the caveat that it does have a cash in lieu payment.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
All right. C, development request 111 West Ogden Avenue. Board to consider an ordinance approving a commercial masonry waiver request from Taco Grill and Salsa Bar to expand this outdoor cooler in the rear parking lot of the restaurant.
Motion approved, Scott.
Second, Emery?
Roll call.
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion? No. Roll call.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
All right. Letter D, we only need one vote here. Preliminary plat of subdivision request at 243 East 56th Street. Board to consider an ordinance approving the following requests from McNaughton Development in order to build 8 new single-family homes. 1, a preliminary plat of subdivision. 2, a payment of fee in lieu for the 56th Street improvements.
Motion to approve, Emery?
Second, Scott.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
All right. E, roof replacement contract award. Board to consider an ordinance approving a construction contract bid award for Olson Roofing Company Incorporated for the south roof replacement at the Westmont Fire Department Headquarters Station at 6015 South Cass Avenue.
Motion to approve, Emery?
Second, Seneca.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
All right. F, Mayor Pro Tem Presiding Officer Rotational Order. Board to consider an ordinance changing the Mayor Pro Tem / Presiding Officer Rotational Order so that the same Mayor Pro Tem is the presiding officer of both the Committee of the Whole meeting and the regular Village Board meeting.
Motion approved, Scott.
second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can we have in there that it's if necessary or if required, because it's not mandatory if the mayor's back on a Monday or something, so, it's not like mayor's move over a chair because we have to cover the same meeting. So can we just put a little,
Yeah, the way it reads now is, if the mayor shall be absent from a regular or special meeting of the Board of Trustees or any committee of the whole meeting, then each trustee in order of rotation shall be the presiding officer for the set of meetings.
Does that cover it?
In my mind, it covered it without being unduly wordy, but if you'd like further,
well, we also understand it. I mean, nobody's going to usurp them, but I just trying to be technical.
As for me, I would rather leave it as is and let it go, because this is a rare thing that would be happening, and I think it's
very rare.
ridiculous to change the ordinance. There's nothing in history that has ever hit this, and, this long of a term where somebody hasn't been there. And especially now when we're trying to combine our meetings, you're going to have somebody who will have a Thursday and a Monday at the seat because they happen to separate. Then you're going to have a meeting where we happen to combine the two, so they're only going to be at the seat for one sitting. I just leave the damn thing alone. There's nothing wrong with it. But that's just my opinion.
I agree, it's extenuating circumstances. It'll probably never happen again.
It never has before, so I don't expect it will
It's
ever.
a few more months.
all right, to answer your
Yeah.
question, there could be a clarification where we say each trustee in the order of rotation shall be the presiding officer for the meeting or set of meetings. I don't know if that'll do it. Never mind. That makes it more confusing.
Well, don't we do a rotation
Yeah.
by, Ginny sets the rotation and we all understand it?
Yeah.
Do we need to put this formally, or can we all, in favor of, if you have a Thursday and we need a pro tem on a Monday, we all understand we'll do it?
Well, we will not be sitting here for the rest of the entirety of the village.
Then they
There may
don't
be
have
new
to
clerks, there may be
understand it.
new trustees who may not understand this, people who've never watched it before.
Then let them change it, back to whatever
No,
it
I'm
is they
just saying
want
they
to
may
do.
not understand what the wording is.
This board as it sits, the six of us can agree to an understanding of something.
And whoever's coming in, I hope that they would take a look at it and understand what it says.
If
Or change
necessary.
it. I mean,
Or
like I said,
change
it'll be a moot point
doesn't
very
matter.
soon.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Pat. I don't know why we're doing it,
But
but
that's why I
I
wanted
can
the sunset.
support either one. It doesn't
That's
matter
why I
to me.
wanted the sunset, because I don't want it to continue on and past when Bill may come back or another sitting mayor would be there. That's why I wanted the sunset. So you don't want to do the sunset, you just want to let it carry on. So that's, I really don't care.
And I'm fine with it either way. I'm fine with it worded the way it is, too. I think we can all agree with it. And if there's a
Right, I
problem
mean-
with it, there's no wrestling over this seat
Well,
come Monday or.
There's another way to do it, and
What's the
that's
big
when
deal?
Ginny emails or calls the person right now and says, the mayor can't be there, you're in the chair tonight. The person can say, I'll take Monday too, or I don't want Monday, and have that discussion with Ginny. And nobody's going to sit there and picket the place because
I agree.
somebody's doing something they don't like.
Well, the ordinance says that already, that a trustee may pass at his or her option the
Right.
right to chair a meeting when the
Right.
mayor's absent. So that's in there.
So I think we can just leave it the way it is, because it sunsets automatically our practice when the mayor comes back. So
Right.
we can just leave it, and
Any future mayor.
I'm in favor of us just agreeing to do whatever it is we think is appropriate.
Are you all right with running the show on that?
Always.
So we have a motion then? As is, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we're good with it. Yeah, we all agree. I mean,
Yes, we do.
Well,
Second?
Yes.
I'm
The motion
confused.
is to consider
Couldn't
the,
discuss it till we had a motion.
consider the ordinance, so we have that motion and seconded, so we actually have to vote on that motion to change it, to reword the ordinance.
If someone wants to change the wording, you can do a motion to amend, which would trump the original motion.
Well, I'll do a motion to pull this item off the agenda. Can we do that? Just say,
You can do a motion to postpone or to, you can do a motion to withdraw.
withdraw.
And if that's what the board wants, I thought I heard the majority saying they were fine with this.
I thought we were fine with just leaving it the way it is.
I'm fine with leaving it the way it is,
Fine with that.
Which way?
the way it is now, today.
Oh,
You mean how it is written on the agenda?
No?
No,
No,
the way we do it today.
Dropping this concept, leaving it as, that's what think I'm hearing?
Yeah, and that if it makes sense to do it on Thursday and Monday, we can all agree on that. We understood the idea of continuity in the meetings, that we don't need it in writing.
So we don't need an ordinance that says it, we just, on
We
good
just-
faith, we know the.
Yeah.
Really, Monday is just voting anyway. I mean, I don't see the big issue.
Well, that's why we were
Right.
brought up, that's why
Yeah, no, I'm following you. I'm agreeing.
we
I
just
see what
go
you're
ahead and
saying.
do it if necessary.
You can only say
Yeah.
we get one time, and then if the other trustees don't want it, you could pass it to them. So then in theory, we're gonna have to say, of the other 5
Well,
passed, and I'm gonna take.
No, if you listen to what it says set of meetings. So if I take that to say set of meetings, to me, a set of meetings is Thursday and Monday.
You're talking about the one on
That's
the
a set,
agenda.
that as it is written now, is set of meetings, correct?
The amendment, that's how it reads.
Okay, to me, a set of meetings would be Thursday and Monday.
Well, we define it. We say a set of meetings shall include both the committee of the whole and the following regular board meeting where votes are cast. Additionally, a set of meetings may include any special meeting on items from the agenda in which that trustee presided. So if you have a contentious zoning hearing and you want to delay the vote to a special meeting just on that issue, that's temporary chairman would chair, or chairperson would chair that special meeting also, if this were to be approved.
And if the need would arise,
Right.
the opportunity arise, yeah.
What you're saying, trustee
I follow
Emery,
what you're
is
saying.
we don't need this at all because the trustees can elect to agree amongst themselves. If someone chairs a Thursday meeting and for continuity wants to chair the Monday meeting, you'd go to the next trustee in rotation and say, hey, mind if I stay in the seat for the voting meeting? And then it would really be up to that other trustee to say, sure, go ahead, I'll just take my turn in rotation when it next comes up.
I'm fine with that. Less paperwork.
Yep.
I think we can handle it. I mean.
Yeah, and I mean.
But trustee
fine.
Fleming brought it up. What's your comment on it?
Right now, the water's so muddy, it's like,
No pun intended.
the only thing that I was saying with this was and I understand we're under a very odd scenario right now. And the chances of it happening again in the future, who knows? The only thing I was looking at is the person who takes care of the Thursday night meeting, I feel should take care of the Monday night meeting. That's all I was trying to get across. That the same face you see on Thursday night, you see on Monday night to complete the task.
Well, without an
Start the
ordinance, can we
task,
all agree on
you
that?
complete the task.
I can go for it.
I can go
I
for
could
it.
agree on it without an ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to
Oh,
do the
that's all
Monday
I-
night meeting, all they have to do is say, I did the Thursday night meeting, I'd like to do the Monday, does anybody mind?
Right.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, Lee, we all just
Well,
agree
yeah,
on
I
that's what
mean,
we're
the
gonna
thing
do?
is, as it states right now, it says set of meetings to me, set of meetings.
Right, but what we're saying is just make it more informal and not have it
Leave it as.
Be an
black and white since it's
Make
a
a new
temporary
ordinance.
situation.
It's fine.
Like, somebody may not want to do the Monday night meeting.
Then I'll make a motion to withdraw.
I think Ellen made it.
She talked about it, she never made it.
Oh.
Right, but I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, so fresh round of discussion. All right, roll call.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow.
Yes.
All right. We have nothing in miscellaneous, and I don't have a request for executive session, so unless there's something else to come before the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Emery. I think we can all agree on that one.
Second, Scott.
Call?
Thing. Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Nero.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow.
Yes.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Go Bears.